you done now?
There's no need to shout. I'm not shouting! All right, I am. I'm shouting. I'm shouting. I'm shouting. Okay, put the corpses on the sofa. Ladies first. Careful, don't get blood on the sofa.
How do we do this? The dagger will go further into her back.
Tip her forward over the arm. Now, Mr. Body. Ready?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Clue the Movie Podcast, where we break down the 1985 cult classic movie Clue 1 minute at a time. My name is Brad Gilmore, and I am joined by two incredible people. As always, the general himself, the streaming general, Jeff Smith. I'm just adding to the name. Jeff, how we doing?
Hello.
How we doing, man?
Hello. I'm doing great. Happy to be back at minute 40, and our guest is back.
He is back, the proprietor of Laker Jim's Fletchcast, which is embarking upon a new season that is going to solve some of the unsolvable mysteries of Fletch, our 1985 favorite. And there's gonna be some Fletch Live stuff, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you very little, guys, for having me back.
Laker Jim is working overtime.
Been sitting on the same game square since last week. Ready for minute 40.
Minute 40, man. Let's start. Jeff, first impressions, minute 40.
Well, I'm guessing the title of this episode. I never know. You always surprise me every week, but I'm assuming it's going to have something to do with shouting, because that's how we open. We have this great, there's no need to shout, and Tim Curry is not shouting. But excellent pratfall. And again, this is another one of those moments in the movie where whoever the killer is very good with gravity and timing, because that candlestick is sitting up there on that door frame just long enough. And then, I don't know, is it the vibrations of the shouting or what causes it to fall when it does? But it is perfect. So kudos to the killer. I like alliteration.
Kudos to the killer. Absolutely. I'm very pro alliteration. I've always been that way my entire life. And no one's going to make me change that.
No.
Laker Jim, what stood out to you about minute 40?
You know, I think minute 40 is a perfect example why 80s movies are superior to any other decade of movies.
Well, I'm ready for this.
If this movie comes out today, scene by scene, it's scrutinized, talked negative about. Back in the 80s, something like this ridiculous can happen, and we don't think anything of it. We don't think about how this happened. It just happened, and we accepted it, and we moved on. It was just a brilliant part of the movie. We suspended disbelief in the 80s a little bit. Today, not so much. You know, Indiana Jones, every molecule of every scene is broken down, and CGI is analyzed and scrutinized, and we just didn't do that back then, and we still don't do it today.
Although I just did it like 30 seconds ago talking about the gravity. But that's unfortunately now we have a podcast such as this where you do scrutinize every
we look
60
at it.
seconds of the movie.
We dissect it, not scrutinize.
Yes,
we dissect.
That's true. We're not
judging.
judging.
No judgments. No judgments.
No judgment.
Here.
I'm happy that it fell.
We
very happy that it fell.
Every minute, every moment.
We savor it. But that is, I will say, not only in the suspension of disbelief in the 1980s movies, also I feel like the way these movies are shot, just because nowadays things I feel, especially from a framing perspective, as Jeff was talking about in this last minute and carrying over into this one, is the way that they have the movies framed up and the shots and the way that they do the cuts and edits in the 80s is so much different than today. Today, I feel like it's so quick with the cuts. There's got to be boom, 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 as if it's almost a TikTok video. Whereas in the 80s, they didn't mind if there was a minute of silence while putting two dead people on a couch.
Just grunting.
And just grunts and just keeping that shot in one. You know what I'm saying, Jeff?
Well, I agree. And I think what's interesting when in the long shot of Wadsworth shouting, it doesn't even cut to Plum when he says there's no need to shout. It just holds on Wadsworth for that whole scene. And I think if you did notice that the candlestick is up there, it's a wonderful moment of suspense because you're just waiting for someone to turn around if they do. And then the great payoff. So I kind of wish I had noticed it the first time if I had been smart enough in my 10-year-old self to look up. But if you do notice it, it's quite fun to think, is it going to be up there like the whole movie and no one looked up there?
Well, but you know what? Let me respond to that, because I think that if this movie was shot today, I think in maybe the 80s, they also knew that the audience maybe they treated the audience a bit smarter than they do today. Because if this scene was shot in the 80s, not only would you get a cut to Professor Plum, you would actually also get a cut of just, you cut to an angle of just the candlestick on top of the door frame from the side, and you can see it slowly tipping, and it goes back to Wadsworth. You know what I'm saying? And Wadsworth still screaming back up to the candlestick, and it just tells the audience something's about to happen. Something's about to happen. It's coming. It's gonna go. And then instead in this one, yeah, exactly. And in this one, it just boom, there it is, happens.
Yeah, and then it's never addressed again. In the next scene, he's got something ice or a slab of meat, as they used to do in cartoons. 50 sitcoms.
I did a little myth busting on this. So the average human screen is between 80 and 125 decibels. That pretty much the highest human screen you can get up to is 125 decibels. The lowest decimals to move an object with volume, with your voice, would be 160 decibels. So it is impossible for it to move with his scream. But again, we suspend disbelief because this is the greatest movie of the 80s.
First of all, applause to Laker Jim
research
for even thinking to do research. Yeah. We normally, if it comes up in our head during the thing, we might take a pause to look something up.
Maybe.
I took this so seriously. I got myself.
Oh my gosh. Visual, but he is holding a candlestick and it looks just like the actual Clue candlestick.
It is the exact candlestick. So anyone looking to replicate the movie props,
literally do Mythbusters, yeah.
Exactly. And pull this off on your, anyone.
How heavy is it? What does it weigh?
It's decently heavy. I don't know what it weighs.
How many grams?
I will tell you that it
in meters. I don't know what that means.
It comes from the Diamond Jubilee Candlestick collection. Now, this collection came from England, and it had several versions. It had the King version, the Princess version. This is the Prince version. That they've been able to figure out that the Prince version of the candlestick is the most accurate one that matches the movie compared to the other weapons. So anyone looking to replicate the props, it's the Diamond Prince candlestick is the one you're looking for.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm humbled and a little embarrassed and ashamed.
As you really should be.
I know. You don't need to tell me.
I'm going straight to Google and looking at these. Oh, and they're not inexpensive.
No, they're made of brass. So I mean, this would have obviously probably killed him if it fell that distance into his.
Yeah.
I mean, so what do you
think about that?
Realistically, what does it weigh? Like if you were to,
it weighs probably less than a pound, but still, it's got enough mass to it that it would do some serious damage.
Yeah.
Right, because it's also about the height that it's falling from. Right. As you mentioned, like people,
the ridges too. That's going to leave a mark.
So we're to believe that he just instantly recovered from that?
Well, let's. I'm going to assume that 3 hours go by. He didn't really call the police anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Some kind of a compress to put on his head.
Yeah, so he had a little bit of time.
True. What happened during that time? Ooh, that's right up your alley, Brad. So what were they all doing while he went to go ice his head?
So, oh man, see
What was Miss Scarlett doing?
Where was she? Was she delayed in her reaction to assist?
Yeah.
Bet you
Where
she
was the motorist that dropped off Mr. Body? Is he circling the neighborhood, wondering if everything's still going to plan?
Right. We did theorize it, Jim, that the motorist and Mr. Body had some sort of connection. We've been really trying to figure this out because
At least he was his Uber.
Maybe you have a theory on this because we talked about it in a very early podcast. Okay, what is Mr. Body's real motivation showing up to this house? And why, if he did not know that they were going to be there, but then maybe he knew they were going to be there, or we do think he knew they were going to be there, he takes the time to get the gifts or the weapons, wrap them up as gifts, give them out. We're trying to figure him out.
Is Mr. Body Mr. Body?
It's a great question.
Or that's the question number one. And number two, did he think his plan was going to work?
If Mr. Body is truly Wadsworth and is being blackmailed by the real Mr. Body, then that really is the only explanation as to why he's there. As the real Mr. Body, it would make no sense to get these people together. I think the only logical, which is the real ending, is that Mr. Body is Wadsworth and he's being blackmailed by the real Mr. Body.
Right. And he didn't know people were going to be there anyway. So when he says, what are they all doing here? It's a genuine question. And he's like, shut up, just pretend you're Mr. Body.
But he still brings the weapons.
I guess.
Yeah, but that's interesting.
Wrapped up.
Let's look at Mr. Body and Wadsworth. Of the two, who is probably a better gift wrapper? Tim Curry or Lee Ving?
We'll go Tim Curry.
I say Curry.
Curry's definitely.
So I think it gives it away right there how nicely those boxes are wrapped. And as we mentioned before, perfect shape, perfect size. They're not rattling around in there.
They're really
good. Purple.
Why Tim Curry's character, whoever he is, would get everybody together, then that really makes no sense. Either other unless it's I don't know. It really makes no sense to get these people together. It can only screw up your whole operation.
It can only hurt it.
It can only fail.
Everything was going very smoothly. With the.
Why would you get them all together? If we learned anything from A Bug's Life, which I always look to for life lessons, when the ants all get together, they can defeat Hopper.
Are you telling me that there's strength in numbers?
That's it.
Wow.
That's what I meant to say in my pop culture-y way.
Yeah. It really doesn't make sense.
Amigos.
It doesn't make sense for, honestly, you're right, Jim. When you think about his operation that he's got going on, this literally screws up everything. If we're going to go by the third ending and Wadsworth is Mr. Body, he is, without a doubt, an idiot.
When you got a smooth blackmail operation going, you don't mess with it.
Right. You know that better than any of us.
Right.
Of course, we all do.
Yeah. Well, he didn't need to get everybody together just to have them dispose of his informants, which was only the cook, the motorist, the cop, and Yvette. He could have taken care of that in an evening.
Exactly.
Well, he did.
Laziness. That's it. When you get too comfortable.
Don't want to do your own dirty work anymore. You think it's beneath you.
Right.
A little wet work. Come on, man. What are we thinking?
He's just playing with them. He's treated it like it's a game.
Let me also raise this question. Why are they so concerned about the dagger going further into the back of the dead cook?
Go back. Do the accent, Brad.
I would have to hear it before I can mimic it. I can do it as Randy Savage, but I can't do it anything else.
All right, do it as Randy Savage.
We gotta watch out. We don't want the dagger going further in her back. That would not be a good idea. The macho man says, "Oh yeah."
That's all I can do.
Thank you.
Especially when it's a British World War II commando knife. Those commando knives.
They're pretty good.
Tell me, wait, hold on. No. Pause. What do we know about the British Commando knife.
I know. I almost breezed right through that.
The Fairbear Strikes World War II British knife. That's all I know. I know the handle is ribbed for easy gripping and stabbing.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that makes sense.
I have a feeling we're going to be using this podcast as evidence at some point. I'm getting a little nervous on Laker Jim.
How many, in all actuality, do you own any other props from Clue the movie other than the candlestick?
I own all the weapons, obviously.
Okay.
And
so did you buy a screen accurate rope there, or where'd you get the rope?
But I think I'm being monitored for Googling how to tie a noose, because once you do that, Google is like,
you're in the database.
This guy's in trouble. We need to watch him. So yeah, it took me my own noose, and it took me a while, but I got it.
Now, where do you display these in your humble abode there?
I don't have them on display yet.
Probably a good
Are
call.
they locked in a cabinet?
Keys in my pocket.
They're actually gift wrapped.
Yeah. In a sweet alligator bag.
I told you I go all out for Halloween, so everything had to be as accurate as possible.
Now, which is your favorite of the 6 weapons?
Oh, geez.
And do you go by practicality or do you go by the iconic?
I mean,
the candlestick's most iconic.
I mean, the candlestick, you think about the candlestick would be possibly the worst weapon when you just look at them.
Right.
But if you think about it, look how much damage the candlestick did in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it did quite some damage. But
unless you're Wadsworth. It just bounces off.
Superman.
That wrench is big and heavy.
Oh yeah. When you see that later in the movie where it's coming, or even when Mustard goes, there's safety in numbers. Mm-hmm. That sound that it makes, you'd feel the weight of that. That's true. I don't want to get hit by a wrench. Yeah, I'm going on record right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the wrench is a good one. I think that the candlestick is the most iconic, like from the game and the movie. Honestly, like anytime you hear a Clue reference, they always say with the candlestick. Every time, it's always with the candlestick. I think it's what you said, Jim. Is like it's the most like unassuming, I guess, weapon of them that it makes sense. Now, I got into and this is a true story. Recently, got into a heated debate over if it's called a candlestick or a candlestick holder.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Where do we lie on this?
I agree, because I would think I used to think that too. I would think a candlestick is the actual wax candle, right?
Right.
I don't think so.
But I don't think I don't know. I
think it's
it
a
really
candle,
matters.
and this is a candlestick. To stick the candle on.
Candle is just a candle. You don't have to get more descriptive than that as far as the shape.
Right. These are the questions that we answer on this show. Is it a candlestick?
Although I'll tell you this, speaking of candlesticks, Scream 5, although it's not called Scream 5, there's a scene towards the end where they're having a party because you have to. And one of the characters is going to go out and he's looking for a girl on his GPS, but the killer might be out there. And he grabs a very large candlestick that looks very similar to the one that Jim has, except his was silver. And he takes it out as his weapon, like to fight off just in case Ghostface is out there. And I wonder if that's a Clue reference.
Oh,
because it's very big. And I don't know a lot of people, though it's pretty hoity-toity. And I don't know a lot of hoity-toity people that have very large, dangerous looking candlesticks. I'd like to.
Jeff, you exclusively know hoity-toity people. That's like a known thing about Jeff Smith. That's like
I know highfalutin people.
You know highfalutin people. That's what they talk about. That's what they talk about in your Reddit subthread. Like it's like he just knows all these hoity-toity people, and they use that phrase. Are you like? Do you have like a burner account on your own Reddit subthread?
No, but you shouldn't see what I Google. I'm on a different list.
I love Colonel Mustard's chivalry with the corpses. Well, he says ladies
or
first.
Thereof.
Yeah, but yes.
He doesn't lift a finger.
He doesn't lift a finger, but he also wants the lady first.
Yeah, he's supervising.
He's a colonel.
Yeah, he's a colonel.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a sergeant. He's a colonel. Yeah. Come on,
Those are his soldiers that are and it's the ladies that are doing the heavy lifting at first, and then Plum gets in there And then creepy Plum's got to get that look in when he's sitting on the couch while Yvette's talking.
Well, first of all, a little unfair, right? Like, it's a little unfair for him at this moment, at this particular moment. Not to saying that I'm coming to his defense, but it's right there for him. You know, I think the creepier moment for him is his hands are all over the buttocks of the dead woman.
Yeah,
He gets 2 handfuls.
Like, very, very strange. Like, that's the
I
sixth
think
son
he
of a
even
gun.
has a moment where he pauses and even thinks to himself, "Oh, this is bad even for me." Because he does have I think there's a weird moment of reflection for Plum. Because then from there on out, he's actually not so bad. Except later when he has to pretend to make out with Scarlett. But then he's weird in that scene. I'm looking forward to getting to that scene where the cop shows up and they're all pretending to have a party.
It's one of the great ones.
I like to jump ahead. Sorry.
He's a jump aheader. Now let me ask you this, Laker Jim.
Yeah.
Since you seem to be so accurate with all your details regarding this movie in particular, were you a super sleuth? Did you watch this movie and try to make sense of it all and follow the clues along?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as it goes, where people were in a certain place or not in a certain place at the same time, like that, I did always look back and say, oh, she's not there, or he's not around, or he's late to the kitchen, or whatever it is. I did, long before the internet or anything like that, did rewatch those things and try to make sense of the endings that that worked out.
Yeah. Did you ever come across any like major revelations as far as you go where you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that tracks?
I guess what comes to mind was early on, just like, who's late to the kitchen? I'm drawing a blank.
Is it Peacock?
It might.
Peacock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that her being late to the kitchen or not being in that scene at all until late on, that I remember tracking really well. Like, that I was so proud of myself that I found that out. And of course later.
What about the Wadsworth scene where they're all discovering Mr. Body's body and he's gone for like a minute? Did you catch on that one? Because I never did.
No, I
didn't
never
either.
caught that.
Yeah.
I never picked up on that
But
either.
then did it bother you later in the movie where it makes no sense, where you can hear Mrs. White screaming while Yvette's going downstairs? And then in ending number 3, it's supposed to be Mrs. White that strangles Yvette. Does that bother you? Does it bother you? It's okay if it does.
It doesn't. Again, I watched this movie through a little bit of rose-colored glasses.
Sure.
Because it's one of my favorites. And I just accept it for what it is.
Nothing about this movie bothers me. Like, nothing. Nothing. And again, there are things like you mentioned earlier, the Indiana Jones, the new one. And if I'm being critical, yeah, there's like 1 or 2 things that I don't love, but overall, love the whole movie. But when it comes to these 3 that I've always talked about, Back to the Future, Fletch, and Clue, like, I have 0 complaints about any of them. And it's almost one of those things to where, and I don't know, Laker Jim, and I actually want to ask you this, but when anybody has a complaint or a criticism of any of the movies, it catches me off guard. I'm like, wait a minute, what? What do you mean?
Complaint, and we've talked about this with Back to the Future. I feel like it's a perfect movie, but his lip syncing at the end bothers me.
Oh, we talked.
I just can't get past it. It's just too fake. It's so not,
Johnny Be Good.
Yeah, the Johnny Be Good lip sync just so far off that it
different voice could have, if they really didn't want it to be Michael J. Fox, they could have gotten
a little closer,
higher.
So different. But that's the only complaint I have about Back to the Future. And but that's nitpick.
Do people levy any sort of particular criticism? Is there a common criticism with Fletch that people bring up?
I don't think so. Trying to think. Not really. I don't think so. I mean, I think the criticism of Fletch is that it strays relatively far from the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's got an entirely different ending. There's a lot of things that are completely different about the book. So I would say the only complaint lies with the comparison of the book and the movie. When you got those hardcore Fletch book fans,
like the purists
that really, I mean, Fletch is blonde in the book. He's like a blonde Brad Pitt, handsome guy. And not to say Chevy wasn't a handsome guy, but he was the opposite sort of the description of Fletch. And in the movie, at the way it ends, with Alan Stanwyck being connected to the chief and the drug smuggling, that doesn't happen. And the chief is the one that kills Stanwyck in a different way because Stanwyck also has blonde hair. So when he sees Stanwyck, he thinks it's Fletch. He shoots Stanwyck, and that's how the blonde hair kind of connects in the book, which is totally different in the movie. But no, I movie criticisms, I don't really hear much about Fletch. Can you guys think of anything?
I know. I was just like, as you were
I don't
speaking.
know if it's that kind of movie. It's
right
for that very reason. I could see how people, if you're a purist and I think a lot of movies based on books, just unfortunately, will always have that. But in 1985, who should have been cast as Fletch, if not Chevy Chase? Who was out there? Like, should have been Robert Redford.
They had other choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't like Bono? Not Bono. What am I thinking?
No.
Mick Jagger?
Jagger, yeah. The rights to Fletch was at one point in the hands of a British music company. So they were looking to put one of their top music stars into the role of Fletch. And luckily that didn't happen because I don't think Mick Jagger could, that would have been
Bowie.
Or Bowie could have done that. But
Dance, magic dance.
But we've done a recasting episode of Fletch, and we all sort of agreed Michael Keaton could have maybe pulled it off.
Okay.
We were all kind of settled on Michael Keaton. Like if we had a
Keaton's a good backup. Keaton's the guy you go to if Chevy says no.
Even 80s Tom Hanks wasn't, squeaky clean Tom Hanks.
Even his character in Dragnet.
Dragnet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pep.
I could see that, but Chevy was the perfect choice for that. I mean, I can't. Now, did you do like a recasting for today's time? Like who would play him today? Because I will say I like John Hamm. I didn't love him as Fletch. I liked him. Thought he was fine. I liked the movie. I like Confess Fletch actually a lot. But he would have been my first choice.
Right.
Did you have any ideas?
Recasting today's Fletch, I think we all agreed that a perfect choice would have been Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he doing his Deadpool / regular Ryan Reynolds character is very much like Fletch. And he grew up loving Fletch, loving Chevy. I guess he, sort of mirrored his act, around that. And when he was offered the role, he turned it down because he just said the shoes were too big to fill. But, I can't, blame him.
That's interesting though, that I always thought before I saw the first movie I saw Ryan Reynolds in was Waiting, and I had already been a Kevin Smith fan. So when I saw Ryan Reynolds, I thought, oh, he's very similar to Jason Lee. Because they kind of have that same delivery style. And then Jason Lee, as we know, was very close to playing Fletch for a very long time. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, just his delivery, his quick timing. He is Fletch. I mean, he acts very much like Fletch, much like we all would love to do. We'd all love to be that quick-witted, handsome, cool character that just goes.
You're describing Brad Gilmore.
No, you do own gloves, do you? Don't you? I rent them. No, what do you say? I rent them. I have a lease with an option to buy. Those are the lines that tickle the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Fletch or Fletch Lives with the in and out joke? It's Fletch Lives, right?
Fletch Lives, yeah.
Fletch Lives, yeah. Absolutely. Anything else that we saw on minute 40? Perhaps that wasn't covered. We talked about. Oh, but no. Why do they care about the dagger going further in the back?
It's just gross.
They don't want to get blood on the sofa.
Don't want to get blood on the sofa.
No.
Yeah.
So
that tracks.
Mustard tells them.
It's funny that it's Yvette that suddenly is carrying. Maybe that's just to throw her off the track. All of a sudden she cares.
And in this minute, we also have the classic scene of Plum sitting on the couch with his hand on the cook's ass and his arm around Mr. Body.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's still.
Gotta that plum, man. That plum.
He gets right in the middle of things.
Yeah, and he sort of thinks about it before he puts his hand on his ass and her ass, and he just goes for it.
Just goes for it. But you know what? That's plum. That's plum's gonna plum, as they say. On Threads. That's the new thing they say on Threads. They say plum's gonna plum. But Laker Jim, we appreciate you for joining us over these next 2 weeks. Obviously, this is an open invite for you to join us whenever you would like to on Clue the Movie Podcast.
Well, he's got to come back because there is a cast member that is in Clue that is also in Fletch.
That's true.
You're not going to sing for us, are you, Sammy?
and we're going to be getting to that. So obviously you have to come back during that time.
I will.
And we look forward to the next season of the Fletch Cast. Where else can people find you? Where can they find the show? Kind of give us the rundown here.
Yeah, on social media you can find us at I am Fletchcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And then the podcast is available anywhere you download podcasts for free. So the best way to, I think, if you're new to listening to the podcast, is start in the beginning and work your way up, because we really cover so many things on every episode. Even if the topic of the episode is something that doesn't interest you, we probably touch on 10 things that will blow you away in that episode. So it's best to just plow through them from the beginning and work your way up.
There we go, man. We can't wait. And then also August 8th, everybody, it's here. Who Done It? The Clue documentary by Jeff Smith will be available for everybody to stream, and they can rent on iTunes.
You can purchase it on Amazon and iTunes, and I've noticed on the pre-order page, the titles will bounce around depending on who's got the most pre-orders. So for a day, it was the first one on that week, and a live concert video of Oasis was second. However, Oasis has moved into the top spot, but I will not look back in anger. And hopefully, if you'd like to see us be ahead of Oasis, because I'm sure that matters to people, go ahead and pre-order on iTunes or Amazon Prime Video, or subscribe to Screenbox, because that's a thing.
Or send me the still, and I'll Photoshop us to the top.
We'll do that too. Laker Jim, Jeff Smith. I am Brad Gilmore. We'll be back next week with minute 41 of Clue the Movie.
Later, boys.